dive into this. Corporate social responsibility, CSR for short.
Yeah.
We're looking at Chapter 6 from Understanding the Dynamics of the Value Chain. That's by William D. Presutti.
Good book.
So CSR, it's about businesses being profitable, but also doing good. Like, can they have their cake and eat it too? That's the question, right?
Right. And this whole idea, it's evolved a lot, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. You go back to the 1930s, it was just this philosophical debate. But now, it's completely different.
How so?
Well, think about it. Investors, they're really looking at a company's social and environmental impact. Like, it's actually tied to how much profit they think the company can make.
So it's not just a PR stunt anymore.
No, not at all. It's real. It's about creating value, real, tangible value.
Okay, I'm with you so far. But help me understand this. How are businesses and society?
Right.
Are they really that connected?
They're totally intertwined. It's like healthy societies need successful businesses, right?
But it goes both ways. Successful companies, they need a healthy social and environmental context to actually operate.
I see.
And that's where the triple bottom line comes in. It's not just about profit anymore.
So what else is there?
You got it. People and the planet. It's about measuring a company's impact on all three.
Okay, that makes sense. So how does a company actually create value through CSR? Where's the proof?
Well, Presutti highlights 4 key areas. It's shareholders, employees, customers, and then society as a whole.
Let's break that down.
Okay, shareholders first. There was this McKinsey study, and they found something pretty interesting. Companies actively moving towards sustainability, they actually saw their profits increase.
Increase by how much?
12%. That's significant.
12%. Wow, that's a lot. So it's not all just warm fuzzies. It really can be profitable.
Exactly. And for investors out there who want to make a difference, this is proof. You can invest ethically and you make money.
Okay, so what about the employees? How does CSR create value for them?
Imagine a workplace where safety comes first. Employees share in the company's success. And there's a real respect for people in how everything is managed.
Sounds pretty utopian.
That's the kind of environment CSR aims to foster. Fair compensation, opportunities to grow, and a feeling that your voice is heard. It matters.
So it's not just about checking boxes.
No way. It's about the culture. A culture that actually values its employees.
And happy employees are productive employees, right?
You know it. Okay, now think about yourself as a customer. What do you look for?
Quality products, good prices.
Sure. But don't you feel better about supporting a company that actually aligns with your values?
Yeah, I guess I do.
Consumers are getting smarter. They're aware of a company's social and environmental impact, and they're willing to pay more for products made responsibly.
It's true. I recently switched to a clothing brand that's known for its ethical sourcing and fair labor practices. It's a bit more expensive, but I feel better about it.
There you go. It's about voting with your wallet.
Exactly.
And that's a powerful incentive for companies to actually step up their CSR game. But it goes beyond individual consumers. It's a ripple effect on society as a whole.
What do you mean?
Think about it. When businesses prioritize social and environmental responsibility, they're creating jobs, generating wealth, contributing to innovation that benefits everyone.
Like a chain reaction.
Oh, that's a good way to put it. Positive impact spreading outwards. So we've established that CSR can create value for everybody involved. But how do companies actually do it? That's where the value chain comes in, right?
Okay, yeah, the value chain.
Think of it like a map. It helps companies analyze their impact at each stage of their operations. Every single stage.
Okay, so it's not just what they do, but how they do it.
You got it.
Can you give me an example, something concrete?
Sure. Let's say a company is all about lean operations and just-in-time procurement. Sounds good, right? Efficient.
Yeah, sounds efficient.
But it might mean tons of deliveries all the time.
Oh.
What's that lead to?
Traffic.
Traffic, congestion, more emissions. And that impacts the whole surrounding community.
So being efficient in one area can backfire.
Exactly. But here's where it gets interesting. That same company, they could use the value chain analysis to find solutions.
Like what?
They could get hybrid vehicles for their fleet, coordinate their deliveries better to reduce trips, or even think about horizontal collaboration.
Horizontal what?
It means they could share resources with other companies, even competitors.
Really? Competitors working together?
It's a thing. Presutti mentioned some interesting examples, like Hershey and Ferrero Group teaming up, or Nestle and Ocean Spray sharing resources.
That's wild. So
Yeah.
they can be more efficient and be more sustainable by working together.
Exactly. Okay, now let's talk about suppliers. They're a big part of this value chain.
Right, suppliers. So how does a company's CSR commitment actually influence their suppliers? Can they force them to adopt similar practices?
It's more about influence than force. Think about it like this. They can include CSR criteria when they're evaluating suppliers.
So it's part of the selection process.
Exactly. Imagine a scorecard. It doesn't just look at price and quality. It includes labor practices, environmental impact, ethical sourcing, the whole package.
So companies can use their buying power to actually drive positive change throughout their entire supply chain.
Now you're getting it. But there's a catch. The book mentions a study. Less than 9% of companies heavily weight CSR in their supplier evaluations.
9%, that's really low. Seems like there's a huge opportunity for companies to step it up here.
Big time. What about your industry? Were they doing better? Could this be a chance to be a leader?
That's a good point. But let me ask you this. We've talked about how businesses impact society, but what about the other way around?
That's key. It all comes back to shared value, right? Businesses, they rely on a healthy society to function, a well-educated workforce, a stable political situation, good governance, a healthcare system that works. It all matters.
I never thought about it like that.
These things are essential for businesses to succeed. And Presutti gives some really interesting examples of companies getting this. He talks about Toyota, how they funded a whole high school.
High school.
Yeah, it was near their facility in Japan, their goal, to ensure they'd have skilled workers for their unique production system.
So Toyota gets skilled workers, and the community gets a better education system. Everybody wins.
Precisely. And there's another example, Microsoft. They put $50 million into community colleges
Wow, why?
to address the shortage of IT workers. Again, it benefits both Microsoft and the community.
Okay, so this whole line between business and society, it's getting blurry.
Totally. They're interconnected. And that leads us to another fascinating concept, the reverse value chain.
Reverse value chain. I'm intrigued.
We've talked about how materials and products flow down the value chain, right?
From sourcing to manufacturing to the customer, the whole process.
Right. But what happens after the product reaches the consumer? Returns, recycling, disposal, all that stuff. That's the reverse value chain.
So it's about closing the loop, managing things responsibly even after they're sold.
Exactly. And this is becoming super important for a couple of reasons. Consumers, they're demanding it. We expect companies to take responsibility for their product's entire life cycle.
Right, so it's not just make it, sell it, and forget it.
Nope. And the other reason, regulations, governments are starting to push companies in this direction.
Like with those laws that make companies responsible for recycling their products.
Exactly. Extended producer responsibility. And Presutti uses the EU's Weak E-Directive as a great example. It forces electronics manufacturers to deal with the disposal of their products.
Makes sense. They're the ones who made it, so they should be responsible for what happens to it at the end.
Right. So it's about owning the whole process, from cradle to grave.
This is a lot to take in, but it seems like there's a really strong case for CSR.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm guessing some people still aren't convinced. What are some of the counterarguments?
There are definitely some different viewpoints. Like, some people say companies should just focus on making as much money as possible for their shareholders.
The classic greed is good argument.
Yeah, pretty much. They think social responsibility will just naturally happen as a result, that the market will sort it all out.
So any attempts to do good will end up hurting the company's bottom line.
That's the idea. But Presutti brings up some pretty powerful real-world examples to counter that argument.
Okay, give me the juicy stuff.
Well, he talks about the BP oil spill, for one. A major reminder of what can happen when decisions are driven solely by profit. Ignoring the potential social and environmental consequences can be devastating.
Ouch.
And then there's the Ford Pinto case. Ford actually chose to pay out injury and death claims instead of recalling cars with faulty fuel tanks. They figured it was cheaper.
That's horrible. It makes you wonder about the ethics involved.
It's a chilling example of prioritizing profit over human life. And these cases really highlight that CSR and profitability don't have to be at odds.
So it's not a choice between the two. Like you can do good and do well at the same time.
Exactly. And as consumers become more aware and regulations tighten, it's becoming more and more attainable.
So what about the future of CSR? Is it just a trend or is it here to stay?
Based on what we've seen, it's looking like CSR is becoming the norm. It's not just for progressive companies anymore. It's becoming a core part of business strategy across the board.
And with social media giving consumers such a powerful voice, Companies are facing more pressure than ever to show they're committed to doing good.
No doubt. Plus, investors are starting to see the value of CSR. It's a financial incentive for companies to take it seriously.
So it's not just about doing good, it's about doing good, A&D, doing well financially.
You got it. And I think this trend is just going to keep growing in the years to come.
This is making me want to learn more, but I think we need to take a pause for now.
Sounds good.
We'll be back soon to dig deeper into the arguments for and against CSR, look at the roles of government and NGOs, and see what the future holds for this whole movement.
See you in part 2.
See you then. Welcome back. Man, that Ford Pinto case. Tough to hear about companies choosing profit over people's safety.
Yeah, it's a harsh reminder. Ignoring the social and environmental impacts to chase profits, it can have some really bad consequences.
It makes you think. It's like businesses, they don't exist in a bubble.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
They're part of this big, complex web. Their actions have ripple effects, It goes way beyond just their bottom line.
Right, it's all connected. Which brings us back to that shared value idea.
Exactly. It's not just some fluffy concept. Businesses and society, they need each other. Creating value for both, that's how you get long-term success, real sustainability.
So it's not about profits or responsibility. It's about finding a way to make them work together.
Right, and that's where the value chain comes in. It's a tool to put these ideas into action.
Okay, so break it down for me. How does that work?
Well, you look at every single stage of the value chain, from sourcing materials to manufacturing, all the way to what happens to the product at the end of its life.
The whole shebang.
Yep. And by analyzing each step, companies can find ways to reduce their negative impact. And at the same time, they can figure out how to actually make a positive contribution to society.
So it's about taking a holistic approach.
Exactly. Understanding that every decision has a social and environmental impact. And by thinking about that proactively, companies can actually manage their risks better.
Makes sense.
Plus, they can boost their reputation, attract customers who care about the same things, maybe even get a leg up on the competition. It's not just a cost of doing business.
It's an investment?
Exactly. An investment in a future that works for everyone. A more sustainable future, a more equitable one.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit. Let's talk about the role of governments and NGOs and all of this.
Okay, yeah. Because sometimes companies need a little nudge in the right direction, right?
It's true. So governments, they set the ground rules, laws, regulations, incentives, those kinds of things. They help create a level playing field, make sure everyone's playing by the same rules. So they can make certain practices mandatory, like setting limits on pollution or how much waste a company produces.
Yep, exactly. Those kinds of regulations can force companies to adopt more environmentally friendly practices, even if it costs a bit more upfront. And on the flip side, they can offer incentives, like tax breaks, to encourage companies to invest in things like renewable energy.
So it's a bit of a carrot and stick approach.
You got it. But it's not just about the environment. Governments can also promote transparency, like requiring companies to publicly report on their social and environmental performance.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, it gives consumers the information they need to make informed choices, and it holds companies accountable for their actions. Now, NGOs, they play a different role.
Okay, how so?
They're often the watchdogs. They monitor how companies are behaving, advocate for change, and raise public awareness about important social and environmental issues.
So they're like the voice of the people, making sure companies don't get away with anything shady.
Exactly. They can put pressure on companies to improve their practices, using things like boycotts, protests, media campaigns. They can really make some noise.
Sounds effective.
It can be. But NGOs can also work collaboratively with companies, helping them develop solutions, promoting best practices.
So it's not always about confrontation.
Nope. Sometimes it's about finding common ground and working together to achieve shared goals. At the end of the day, governments and NGOs both contribute to creating an environment where CSR is the expectation, not the exception.
It's like checks and balances, making sure businesses are doing the right thing.
Exactly. Okay, enough about the past and present. Let's talk about the future. Where do you see CSR heading?
Well, from what we've seen, it seems like CSR is becoming more mainstream. It's not just a niche thing anymore. It's becoming essential for businesses across the board.
I agree. This trend is only going to get stronger in the coming years.
Why is that? What's driving this change?
Well, for one thing, there's a growing understanding that the world's biggest challenges, like climate change, poverty, inequality, they're all connected.
Yeah, it's all intertwined.
Right. And companies are starting to realize they have a role to play in solving these problems, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because it's in their best interest. Their long-term success is tied to a healthy planet and a healthy society.
If the planet's on fire, businesses can't exactly thrive.
Exactly. Another thing is demand for transparency. Consumers, investors, employees, they all want to know where things come from, how they're made, what impact they have, and they're holding companies accountable.
Yeah, consumers are getting more and more savvy. They want to support brands that align with their values, and they're not afraid to call out companies that are just pretending to be good.
You're right. Social media has been a huge factor in this. It's given people a platform to share their experiences, spread awareness, and even organize boycotts. Companies can't hide anymore.
So they can't just talk the talk, they have to walk the walk.
Exactly. And that's a good thing. It's pushing them to be more authentic, more transparent.
So where does technology fit into all of this?
Technology is a powerful tool. It can expose bad practices and amplify negative press for companies that aren't doing the right thing. But it can also help companies. They can use technology to track their supply chains, measure their environmental impact, and find new ways to connect with stakeholders.
So it's a double-edged sword.
Exactly. And this brings us to another trend. We're seeing purpose-driven businesses.
Okay, I've heard that term, but what does it actually mean?
These businesses are about more than just making money. They have a mission, a clear purpose to make a positive impact on the world. And everything they do, their operations, their strategies, it's all aligned with that mission.
It's not just about tacking on a CSR initiative as an afterthought.
Nope. It's about integrating social and environmental responsibility into the company's DNA. It's about why they exist in the first place. And consumers are responding to this, especially younger generations. Millennials, Gen Z, they're seeking out brands that align with their values.
They want to support companies that are trying to make a difference.
Exactly. And this trend is only going to grow stronger. Younger generations are becoming the dominant force in the market. They're demanding more from the companies they support. It's like they're saying, don't just sell me a product, sell me a purpose.
Okay, so it sounds like the future of CSR is pretty bright.
I think so. We're seeing business and social good coming together, and that's incredibly exciting.
It's a good feeling. It feels like we're moving towards a world where doing good and doing well, they're not at odds anymore.
Exactly. It's about realizing that we're all in this together. By working together, we can build a better world for everyone, a more just world, a more sustainable world, a more prosperous world.
That's inspiring. But let's get practical for a second. If CSR is becoming the norm, what can our listeners actually do to support this movement?
That's the big question. And the good news is we can all do a lot. As consumers, employees, investors, we all have a part to play.
Okay, but where do we start? It feels so big, so overwhelming.
Start with awareness. Educate yourself about the social and environmental impact of your choices. As a consumer, as an employee, as an investor.
So do your research. Read labels. Ask questions. Know what you're supporting.
Exactly. We need to be informed, engaged citizens. We need to hold companies accountable, support the ones who are doing good, boycott the ones who aren't, and speak up. Advocate for change.
Put your money where your mouth is.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just buying stuff. Think about where you work. Does your employer share your values? And how are you investing your money? Are you supporting companies that are making a positive impact? These are questions we should all be asking ourselves.
So it's about aligning our actions with our values in every part of our lives.
That's it. It's about recognizing that we all have the power to make a difference, no matter how big or small our actions might seem. Whether you're a CEO or just starting out in your career, whether you're a consumer or an investor, we all have the power to shape a better future.
That's empowering. It reminds me that this isn't just about corporate responsibility, it's about collective responsibility.
You got it. It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected and that our actions, even the small ones, they can add up to something bigger, something that can truly transform the world.
This has been a fantastic conversation. We've covered a ton of ground, but I feel like we've only scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore.
You're right. CSR is a huge field, and it's constantly evolving. There's always something new to learn.
That's why we love these deep dives. But for now, we need to take a quick break. We'll be back soon to wrap this up with some final thoughts and insights. Don't go anywhere. We're back, ready to wrap up this deep dive into corporate social responsibility.
Absolutely. It's been quite a journey.
It really has. We've covered everything from the history of CSR to the rise of these purpose-driven businesses, and even how technology can be a force for good.
Yeah, and throughout all these different aspects of CSR, one thing has really stood out to me.
What's that?
The fact that businesses and society, they're not separate. They're completely intertwined.
Totally. It's like this whole time we've been thinking of them as these two separate things, but they're not. They need each other.
Exactly. And that's the fundamental idea behind CSR, right?
To recognize that what companies do has a huge impact. And not just on, like, their shareholders or their customers, but on everyone. Their employees, communities, the environment, the whole world.
Right. And we're seeing this shift in thinking everywhere. Consumers are demanding it, investors are rewarding it, and even employees, they want to work for companies that share their values.
It's like CSR is no longer just a nice to have, it's becoming a must-have.
Exactly. It's becoming a core part of any successful business strategy.
Yeah.
Companies that ignore this, they're doing so at their own risk.
Yeah, they're going to get left behind, damaged reputation, losing customers, can't attract good employees. It's a recipe for disaster.
For sure. But the companies that embrace CSR, they benefit in so many ways. Better brand image, loyal employees, and they can even be more innovative.
So it's a win-win for everyone. Companies can do good, A&D do well.
Okay, but let's zoom out for a minute. We've talked a lot about what companies can do. But what about the rest of us? What can individuals do to help move this CSR thing forward?
That's a great question. And the answer is a lot. As consumers, as employees, as investors, we all have a role to play.
But I think a lot of people feel like their actions don't really matter. Like it's this huge, overwhelming problem. How can one person make a difference?
It starts with awareness. You need to know what's going on. Educate yourself about the impact of your choices. What you buy, where you work, how you invest your money.
So do your research. Pay attention to labels. Ask questions.
Exactly. We need to be informed and engaged citizens. We need to hold companies accountable. Support the good ones, avoid the bad ones, and don't be afraid to speak up. Advocate for change.
It's about putting your money where your mouth is. That's it. And it's not just about buying stuff. It's about where you choose to work. Do your values align with your employer's values? And what about your investments? Are you supporting companies that are making a positive impact? These are important questions to ask yourself.
So it's about aligning your actions with your values in every area of your life.
Exactly. And recognizing that you have the power to make a difference. You. Doesn't matter if you're the CEO or just starting out. Every single person has the power to contribute to a better future.
That's a powerful message. It's a reminder that this isn't just about corporations being responsible. It's about all of us. It's about collective responsibility.
You got it. We're all connected. And all of our actions, no matter how small they seem, they add up. Together, we can create real change. We can create a better world.
This has been an amazing conversation, and I think you've given our listeners a lot to think about.
I hope so.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into corporate social responsibility, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to our expert for sharing your knowledge and insights, and thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And remember, even though this deep dive is ending, the conversation doesn't have to. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep pushing for a better future.
We can do this.
We can. Thanks for listening.